On your Tuesday episode of Locked On Raptors, we're talking all about Poutine Olajuwon doing it once again.
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? And welcome to another episode of Locked On Raptors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It is Tuesday, January the 14th, and I'm your host, Sean Woodley. I've been covering the Toronto Raptors now for 11 seasons on various platforms. You can find all my work over on Blue Sky. The show is on Instagram, and you can also join us in the Locked On Raptors Discord server. Link in the description of the podcast. It's free to join. It's a great place. Come hang out, talk ball with sickos just like you who love the podcast and don't like working during the day. Of course, you can also follow or subscribe to, that is, the free daily Locked On Raptors newsletter. You can go to the QR code on the screen if you're watching on YouTube. You can go to the link in the description of the podcast if you're listening on audio. Please subscribe. Makes me feel real good. And we are pushing 1,200 subs over there, which is rad. You are all the best. Thank you for subscribing. It's me 5 days a week talking about your favorite 9-31 basketball team that is streaking. They've won one game in a row, baby. Join the wave. Today's show is brought to you by friends over at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. And we are off and running, talking about a Toronto Raptors win 104-101 over the Golden State Warriors. We will get into the performance of Scottie Barnes, Ochai Agbaji. We got our good, bad, and coming up later on as well. But there's no other place that we could start other than Chris freaking Boucher on the heater of his life right now. 17 fourth quarter points out of his 18 in the game. He has scored 31 of his last 32 points over the course of 2 insane quarters. He is a madman. He is having the time of his life, and I'm having the time of my life watching him. And here to talk about Chris Boucher kicking all kinds of ass is our pal Vivek Jacob from his Substack newsletter, Raptors in 7, from Sportsnet, from Sportscasting, from all over the damn place. Big V, Chris Boucher. Bonjour. I don't do it quite as well as Jack Armstrong.
That was amazing. Chris Boucher, man, the story of the hour right now, the man of the moment. I mean, this is
story of the hour, man of the.
I messed it up. I do accept that. It's a Tuesday morning, you know.
All right, none of us can be as perfect as Chris Boucher. It's all right.
But just hooping, man, just straight hooping, competing, hustling, focus, intensity. We're seeing it all. Rebuild around Chris Boucher.
I can't argue with it. He's a number one option. You want your number one options? You're worried Scottie Barnes is not one of them? Chris freaking Boucher is, baby, because that dude, unconscious. He hits every shot. That seems to be pretty helpful. And I mean, the culture, the spirit, all of that stuff is what you want in your franchise basketball player. I'm with you. There's going to be calls to trade Chris Boucher before the trade deadline. I say, load up that max extension. I don't think you can actually give him a full max based on the CBA, but you can give him the 40% raise over what he's making right now. Why the hell not? Give him 5 years. Keep him around till he's 37, damn it. Yeah, I mean, this is inexplicable. And frankly, this is like what makes basketball the most fun. We spend a lot of time, Big V, trying to, articulate what's going on the floor. Let's understand the process and everything that's going down. How is everything? What's the intricacy of this set and this action? How are the numbers matching the eye test? Can we explain what's happening on the floor? It's way more fun when insane stuff happens, like Chris Boucher going 25 of his last 33 for seemingly no reason and winning them a game that they really, really needed. I feel like they needed a W to kind of lift the spirits, I think. This is what the most fun stuff is stuff that you can't explain, the inexplicable. Chris Boucher, what a wonderful story it's been. Is there anything going on here that's like different to you? It's like we've talked about Chris Boucher a lot. We have dubbed him the most sustainably unsustainable basketball player in the world earlier in the season with our pal Keeks on the podcast. He has been a whack-a-mole player for the Raptors for many, many years now. And there have been moments where he's looked awesome and moments where he's not looked great. And like kind of nothing in between, frankly. That's been the Chris Boucher experience. Is there anything going on here over the last week as he has gone onto this ungodly heater that you think is like, something changed within him? Did turning 32 this week just like have something click in? I know when you're in your 30s, you get more wizened, you get more mature, you understand the world, you have perspective. What the hell is going on here?
Yeah, man, it's 32-year-old Chris Boucher, and we're just all gonna have to get used to it. Like, everything is just clicking, everything is flowing. It's like what Shea said, right? Shea's in a flow state. Chris Boucher is in a flow state right now. That MVP battle, Jokic, Shea, and Chris Boucher.
Yeah. I don't see really any like debate there. Who even is your fourth guy? Giannis? Giannis ain't doing this. Has Giannis had any 17-point fourth quarters where he carried his team to victory? I think not. He probably has. Do I care about them? Absolutely not. Am I going to look it up? No. We're doing Chris Boucher propaganda here. Yeah, I mean, I think there's been look, he's not someone who is necessarily all about making the next read in the sequence. He's the last read very often. Oh, it's my turn. I have the ball.
He's
shots going up. Yeah. The read is clear the hell out. Shout out Scottie Barnes, by the way, for not scoring in the fourth quarter, just understanding the flow of the game. Get out of Boucher's way. Let him do the thing. That's a star player with a head on a swivel right there. But yeah, like he did talk about the game after the game, and Darker was very, full of praise for him as well. Just sort of his willingness to keep on getting better. And despite him being now 32 and very long in his NBA career, and he talked about, Boucher did after the game, sort of feeling like he's not just chucking, right? He's making that next read, whether the read is to pass or to just drive instead of shoot and find a shot closer to the rim. Those are reads too. Those are valuable things that a guy can do to kind of mix things up. And yeah, I think with how crazy hot he's been, if you can take advantage of teams being scared of the Chris Boucher barrage from deep to blow by, and he had that beautiful drive and Euro step and finish in this game. He's cutting to the right spots. That's always been a thing he's been very good at. He's just kind of finding the ball. There was literally a possession where it was like two guys not named Chris Boucher tied up in the action, and Chris Boucher just appears out of nowhere to get a ball and scores. Like, just that knack, nose for the ball he's kind of always had. The defensive stuff is still the defensive stuff. It's a little jumpy. He's not super quick laterally and all that stuff. But, man, the offense, it feels like modestly more in control, I would say, over the course of his last little stretch here. Will that hold up? Probably not. This is Chris Boucher after all. And part of what we love about him is that this stuff never holds up. But, I mean, this goes down as the most fun stretch he's had as a Raptor, right? We're not counting the Tampa season where everything was awful and all the points didn't matter.
Right. I think so. I think, maybe that stretch when he was getting minutes during the win streak, when the Raptors had that comeback against Dallas.
Yeah.
You might throw that in there.
The title season, the title defense season, that is, yeah.
Yeah. But no, this one might be the most fun. I think, when he hit that three to tie it at 98 with about 3 minutes to go, 28-footer, you're throwing up a prayer, but it wasn't a prayer for Boucher. He seemed to know right away.
It did like a Fred VanVleet level arc on that thing. And I believe the quote after the game by Boucher was, "I shot that thing to the moon."
Oh, man. Oh, Savage Garden to the moon and back. But
we're
man,
in peak form today, buddy.
Like, it's such a heater right now. Like, you throw in the first quarter against Detroit, where he just comes out and he's again in such a good place. Like, you could just see him after he hits every shot. It's just like, yeah, this is me. There was the block he had against Georges Niang, I think, against the Cavs, and they had that back and forth. So you can just see, like, he's fully engaged. He doesn't care who's in front of him. He's just having a good time out there. Would have been nice to see him in the fourth quarter against Detroit too. But hey, got him here, and made the most of it.
Yeah, I think the only other stretch I can think of where Chris Boucher kind of like captured the imagination was early in that 2019-20 season. I remember this very specifically because it started with a game in LA where one of the dumber tweets I've ever sent was in that game against the Lakers. It was like the ninth game of the season. This is, I believe they had just lost Pascal to injury, or they had lost Ibaka or something, or Kyle, like someone was out. And they were it might have been Kyle, actually. They were kind of piecing things together with a bit of a spotty rotation. And Chris Boucher comes in and it had like a really bad first quarter. And I think I tweeted at one point, as much as we want to make this happen, I don't think Chris Boucher is an NBA player. And then he goes on and has 15 points in that game, and then goes on a run where he gets 15, 13, then 2 and 3, but then 11, 14, 13. Like a real nice run there as that sort of Rondé Hollis Jefferson weirdo bench lineup kind of, and Patrick McCaw was in there. They kind of got some groove going. This is very different. It's obviously a very different style of team, and that team was good, and this one is 9-31. But this to me is like, if this is the swan song for Chris Boucher with the Toronto Raptors, if this is the waning days of his time here, I can't really, you couldn't have scripted a better way for him to go out. This encapsulates perfectly what Chris Boucher has been to this team over the years, which through some pretty dark seasons over the last 5 or so, he has been a guy who just brings insane joy and moments of, oh, that guy rules, even when the team is not very good. Kind of bringing light to what has otherwise been a pretty fallow period for Toronto Raptors basketball. And hopefully he can keep on bringing this heat, man. Like, we'll get to it later. I'm not a believer in the idea of like building one's value before the deadline or showcasing before the deadline. But when you're on a heater like this, maybe that is the exception that proves the rule. We will get into that later. We're also going to come up in just a second here and talk about the non-Chris Boucher parts of this win, Scottie Barnes, and an opportunity for Big V to do a little victory lap on one Ochai Agbaji. We'll get to that coming up in just one sec. Today's show is brought to you by Wayfair. Look, after the holiday hustle, there's nothing like giving your home a little TLC. I always find decluttering, refreshing the space, maybe getting a couple new furniture pieces is a really nice way to get you back into the routine. And man, oh man, do I lose my routine during the holidays. And yeah, housework can be a nice way to kind of get back in the groove of living daily life, whether you're tidying up, clearing out, or you just want to give your space a new look to start the year. Wayfair is everything you need, all within your budget. And it could be anything, right? I'm working on the room next door to this one that I record in. We're going to work on and sort of turn into a bit of a guest room. Very well could go peruse Wayfair to find myself a guest bed, maybe some furniture, maybe some dressers that we can go and throw in there for a very reasonable price. There's something for every style and every home, no matter your space or budget. Wayfair makes it easy to tackle your New Year's home goals with endless inspiration for every space. And you can go check them out right now. Give your home the refresh it needs with Wayfair. Head to wayfair.com right now. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Back at it here with Big V, Vivek Jacob from Sportsnet and Sportscasting and Raptors in 7 and a luxury box at the game last night. It's Big V. There's a man about town as we get into the other good stuff from this win over the Golden State Warriors. Let's start with Scottie Barnes. We'll get into Ochai Agbaji in a second here, but Scottie Barnes, I thought in this one, kind of got quiet later in this one. He didn't score in the fourth quarter. I think he was 0 for 4 from the field. But all told, I thought a pretty good process game for him, a very good defensive game from him. The Raptors, I thought, defended this one pretty darn well, start to finish. And Barnes, 23, 8, and 6, all told, and kind of doing a lot of work from his office in the mid-range, which has been a real fun wrinkle to his game that it seems to be honing and refining game after game. Big V, thoughts on Scottie Barnes in this one? A bit of a return to form after some sort of ups and downs, I would say, since, I guess, last returning from injury with the ankle thing. It's been a bit of a rocky road.
Yeah, but I do think that he has been trending in the right direction these last few, even if the team has kind of been struggling. I feel like that Cavs game was a strong performance. I feel when you watch the performances over the last while, I do really enjoy the consistency of the mid-range and how he's been able to go to that. And I think, we saw a little bit of, I think him kind of saying like, okay, let's stop the bleeding. And I'm comfortable with this shot. to kind of, stop the bleeding.
Mhm.
And I think that's a really, really important development if that's a consistent thing we see the rest of the way. Obviously
Mhm.
he's feeling very confident about the shot right now, but we'll see if it remains that way. And so I think when you kind of look at process stuff that can carry over, this is very much one of those things, right? It's
Mhm.
the type of shot that you look at in the playoffs. If you're looking for a crowd silencer, if you're looking for, hey, in the same way, guys get to the free throw line and it's like, okay, let's just slow things down here and just make things easier on ourselves. If this is a shot that he can rely on and say, okay, I'm just gonna get into this mid post and I'm gonna get to my spot and I'm gonna get a good look, like that's something that could be really, really important for him.
Totally. And I think too, sort of, and I think our pal Blake Murphy made a point about this last night. I was kind of talking about it last week too. Like this is sort of the layering of stuff within his game that is going to help him get to even greater sort of heights down the line. Like if that mid-range game and that sort of back down turnaround game that he's got is this reliable, is this dependable, and he's shooting a career high from mid-range right now, a career high from short mid-range, and a career high at the rim, by the way. He's shooting 76% at the rim. He's not getting there a ton. I think some of that is due to, the way he was asked to create to start the year, where he's, kind of in a pinch filling in for Emmanuel Quickly, who was out last night, by the way. So we did see a little bit more of Scottie sort of creating from a standstill atop the arc, but it was a lot of post up stuff for him in this one. A bit of a sort of move away from like, all right, well, let's just see if he can do something from the top every single time down the floor. But, with the way he was playing, I think that maybe cut into his rim frequency a little bit. And he's still not getting there a ton. He's only getting 25% of his shots at the rim, though a big proportion of his shots are at short mid-range, which is like a rim shot for him almost at this point. But my point is, as he continues to sort of tilt the scouting report and teams are wary of that mid-range, we've seen him bust out a few counters already against Jonathan Isaac and Evan Mobley, two of the best defenders alive, even, of sort of turning that mid-range into like a one quick step through and shot at the rim. And that to me is where things get really interesting here is, can he parlay this mid-range success into getting to the rim more often where he's a machine? And what does that do for his playmaking? Is he going to draw doubles more often? Like this is, maybe not the exact shape that everyone thought Scottie Barnes, lead creator, lead scorer, was going to take, but I certainly think the progress he's made in the mid-range sets the stage for a whole lot of other good stuff to come as, again, scouting reports adapt and, he has to evolve and react and build counters and things like that. And it seems as though he is a mid-range wizard, which is awesome. A guy who's a wizard from apparently every part of the floor and can't freaking miss is Ochai Agbaji, who was really good in this game. Kind of a perfect Ochai Agbaji performance. 25 minutes, 5 of 8 from the field, 12 points, 3 boards, and comes in late, subs in for Davion Mitchell, who was a little fouly and very bricky in this game. And Ochai, I thought, provided a really nice bit of length and size guarding Steph Curry in this one down the stretch. Steph had himself his game. He got his numbers. He was 26, 7 and 7 on 9 of 17, 4 of 10 from downtown. He was very successful in this one, but kind of got locked up in those last few minutes when Ochai was out there, which is great to see. And I mean, you were very heavy on the Ochai as a guy bandwagon dating back to last year. I was a little skeptical. I thought the stuff he had done in Utah was very sort of like he does one thing well. He shoots corner threes. He never dribbles. He doesn't really score at the rim. And we saw just like a really, really bad stretch for him with the team down the stretch last year as well. Was awful in summer league as a third-year guy. That seemed to raise some red flags. And I was pretty dubious that Ochai Agbaji was going to play himself into being a rotation player. And yet here we are, halfway through the season. He's been arguably the most predictably reliable Toronto Raptor. He's shooting 40% from deep. He can't miss from 2. He's been awesome. Big V, I give you the floor to dance around, maybe serve up some crow for me to eat, and do a little victory lap on Ochai Agbaji. How you feeling to see this one play out the way it has?
Hey, look, man. First off, like you weren't the only one hating on Ochai last season.
No, that was most people, I think.
So I think just going back to where I was in terms of what I enjoyed in terms of watching him play, I felt I saw a guy who was just a smart basketball player. And I felt like even though the skills weren't where they needed to be, I felt like this was someone who made right decisions, could cut really, really well. That was one thing that definitely stood out. And it was like, okay, listen, if this is a guy who can cut and get easy baskets that way, if he can get to a point where he's knocking down his threes consistently, and if the defense can still, level up, I think he still needs to be um, a really good defender, if not a great defender.
Sure.
Right now, I'd put him in the good category, and he's got to
Mhm.
get to really good. Uh, if he can do those things, then there's value off the bench, and there's value in terms of being a rotation piece. And I think the start of this season has been really good for him in terms of getting the reps, getting the opportunity, being able to build up that confidence and saying, "Hey, okay, these are the things we worked on in the summer, and now I've had the reps to be able to play through whatever mistakes." I mean, and thankfully, like he didn't make too many mistakes in the start of the season. He was just balling, and so I think all of that has served him well. Obviously, there's been a transition period in him going to the bench and having to figure that out. But I do feel that with this performance, this is probably the best he's played in a little while. You mentioned the defense on Steph. I thought even some of the plays he made on the interior. He had the one block on Trace Jackson Davis.
Mhm. Mhm.
That was unbelievable. And I think, yeah, I think if he can show that he can do the same things, but in that 12 to 18-minute window, whatever it may be, then we're really onto something, right? Because that is his ideal role.
Mhm. Yeah, he to me, maybe he fits in as a starter at some point. Maybe they make the move to swap him in for Grady Dick or RJ Barrett or something like that. But if not, I think he's just like the kind of very nice sort of tidy rotation player that every team needs. And yeah, I mean, they've done a really great job streamlining his shot chart. He's very much like a Maury ball player now,
Yeah.
where he takes 46% of his shots at the rim, 45% of his shots from three. A ton of those are coming from the corners. Obviously, he's always been a corner marksman. 28% of all of his looks are corner threes, 96th percentile in the NBA, getting the most efficient shot on the floor, or the most efficient three on the floor, and he's get 96th percentile in terms of rim frequency as well. Like they've just really stratified what he does, cut out the mid range entirely, and it's been a delight to see. Man, he's been so effective. Uh, a mainstay of the rotation, and yeah, like one of the great stories of the season for sure is Ochai turning himself into like just a guy who's probably going to be around for a while, the type of guy that most teams really need. We're going to come back on the other side here. Big V, get into the good, the bad, and the Jamal Shead can't miss from three. Is he drinking that Chris Boucher espresso, just like Darko Rajakovic said is the source of Boucher's power before the game, or is something else going on? We'll get to that coming up in just 1 second. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time, the single best place to go buy tickets for the sporting events that you want to go to. You can also go to music, right? Or as some people call them, concerts. There are theater shows, comedy shows, whatever it is, all there on Game Time for you to go to peruse. Some of my favorite memories are just like being at sporting events with my pals. We went to a Blue Jays game with our pal Big V earlier this year. That was great, even though the Blue Jays are terrible. Going to sports games is fun, and you can buy tickets for those games by going to Game Time. It's super easy. They have Game Time picks, which helps you filter out the fluff and get only the seats that you want to sit in for the price that you want to pay. They just show you the best seats and the best deals, and you can go very quickly in a couple of taps, buy your tickets. You can turn on the all-in pricing feature as well, which shows you exactly what you'll pay at checkout. No surprise fees when you toggle that feature on. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Create an account. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Today's show is also brought to you by Hungryroot. When it comes to grocery shopping and meal planning, I've got this ongoing problem. I just don't have the time. I'm writing newsletters for you piggies. I'm doing podcasts for you piggies. And man, do I love playing video games. Sometimes I just don't want to cook. I just want to play Balatro and be in peace, okay? Hungryroot helps you to do the whole meal planning thing without all of the hassle. With Hungryroot, it's like having a personal shopper and a nutritionist all in one. They take care of your grocery shopping, recommending meals and groceries based on your taste and health goals, from anti-inflammatory to high protein and gluten-free options. And the best part, every meal is ready in 15 minutes or less. I'm talking quick, healthy meals that actually taste great, all delivered straight to your door. It's been for a limited time. Get 40% off your first box and a free item in every box for life. Just go to hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA and use code LockedOnNBA. That's hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA. Code LockedOnNBA to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA. Code LockedOnNBA. Don't miss out. Wrapping it up here with Big V, Vivek Jacob from Sportsnet, Raptors in 7, and Sportscasting, among other places on the internet. And we've got the good, the bad, and the lined up for you here. A thing we liked, a thing we didn't like, and a thing that's got us a wee bit intrigued about the latest Toronto Raptors basketball game, a thing that we do here on the heels of every Toronto Raptors basketball game. We'll start with the good. Big V, I will tee you up for it. You're not allowed to say Chris Boucher, though, because we've already covered him at length. But if you want to and break the rules, like, I'll be fine with it too, whatever.
No, look, let's go with Jamal Shead. We've talked about Boucher. We've talked about Ochai Agbaji, but Jamal Shead is having a really good stretch. I think the confidence he's playing with offensively, where he is so ready on those catch and shoots. And I think that's super, super interesting and so important for him. And, you know, to see that, what was it, second quarter, where he's in semi-transition and he's running to the corner to take a three and like just no hesitation, lets it go and makes it. That's the type of stuff that tells you a guy is playing with supreme confidence shooting the ball. And then he gets into his playmaking. Obviously, defense. You know, we saw in this game there was clear game plan to just be as physical as possible with Steph Curry. And you know, maybe there were times where he was too physical, but he was definitely clear about sending that message, right?
The first time he subbed in, he like more or less tried to kill Steph Curry.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I'm a missile, like, the dinosaur. I'm the asteroid. You're the dinosaurs. Deal with it.
Yeah. I was a little concerned because I got Steph on my fantasy team, but made it through. Steph made it through alive. The Raptors won the game, and yeah, I think Shead has been really, really impactful. Like, you go back to the Detroit game, it was him and Boucher that were like instrumental in kind of dragging the game back after the starters came up so poorly, right? And so I think this is a good stretch for him, and hopefully he can just keep building on it.
What has it been? 15 years since Steph Curry was the second best shooter in a game. Jamal Shead, what can you say? The guy can't miss right now. He's the best shooter alive. Sorry, Steph. Time to retire. Time to hang him up. Hand over the reins to one Jamal Shead. My good was also Jamal Shead. You blew up my spot, but that's all right because I have some film study to delve into here. I posted about this on Blue Sky. You can go follow me over there and sort of see the clips I posted. But watching Shead last night and sort of going back and looking at some of his misses from earlier in the season, there's very clearly been a mechanical change to his shot. Like this has happened. When you go back and look at him early in the year, his follow through was weird as hell. He was kind of going up and the hand was like falling away to the right, which is not really how they teach it, right? You want to follow through straight. He was kind of following through and kind of fading off to the right. And I think the spin was weird on the ball as a result. The trajectory was kind of unpredictable as a result. And if you look at the the makes from the last couple of weeks here, he's really tightened that up. And last night, I think it was a really good example. There's one of the threes he hit that's like a perfect camera angle to kind of see the full form of the shot. It's just catch, quick, tight, compact release. The hand's not falling away. Like they've done something to figure out whatever the hell was going on with that follow through. And to me, like, that is a reason to think that the hot stretch he's not going to shoot like 80% from three as he has over the last handful of games here. But it gives me reason to believe that that's a sustainable, tangible thing that can kind of keep up and he can just be a better shooter than he's been because they changed something. It's like in baseball when a guy changes their swing and then they get better. And it's like, oh, well, that is like cause and effect. They did the change and then they got better. It's not some guy with a janky swing just kind of getting on a heater because he ran into some fastballs over the course of a week. Like this is Jamal Shead over the course of time changing his shot, and it seems like it's paying dividends right now. He's shooting 39.6% on catch and shoots this year. Not a huge volume, but that's a great number to be at. The pull-ups aren't there at all, or in the teens, but 39.6 on catch and shoots. That's going to keep him in the NBA. Like if he's shooting that well on catch and shoot threes, all the other stuff is so high level that he is going to be that long-term backup point guard that I think he can be, that I think a lot of people think he can be and hope he can be, because he's just so darn likable on top of it all. And Darko even talked about it after the game. Like he is someone who is like taking the most shots of anybody in practice, just like putting in tons and tons of work into it. Clearly the shot doctors have gotten to him as well. Very exciting stuff. Jamal Shead, easily the good. What you got for your bad in this one?
Look, man, it's been a minute since this team has won, so we're going to take a day off the bad. All right.
I like it. I was going to give a bad, but I won't now. Also, you've been saved, Davion Mitchell. You've been saved. What's your Big V?
In terms of the I think with RJ, getting in foul trouble, it was interesting to see the stretches of play without him. I think just in terms of balance on the court, defensive balance, maybe, it just seemed like a bit of a better flow. I think RJ in general has been forcing the issue offensively the last little while. And I think, because it was forced with the foul trouble, we did see more of a flow to the offense. I think we saw the ball movement, and we saw Scottie look very, very comfortable. I think he and RJ have had great chemistry in understanding each other. But I think with the way RJ has forced the issue, maybe, that has been thrown off a little bit. And obviously, quickly out of the lineup, there's more touches to go around. Maybe they just know how to play better without quickly at this point of the season. And it's like, oh, okay, we know this.
Yeah.
and
skeleton crew mode. Yeah, we're familiar. Yeah.
And that probably has something to do with it as well. But yeah, I think in terms of the defensive balance, with RJ out, it just looks a little bit better. I don't know how you felt about that.
I mean, yeah, this has been how I've been feeling all year about the defense with RJ Barrett. It's been really rough. The starters have been demolished, and I think it's in large part because Grady Dick and RJ Barrett are just not doing enough on the wings. And, I don't think they're this bad. They're worse than the Wizards on defense over this full season with the starters on the floor right now. Like, that's not great. But like, I think there's something more there, and I think they can outscore their problems a little bit more than they have for sure. But yeah, like it's the big elephant in the room is everyone loves RJ Barrett as they should. He is excited to be here as he should be. It's awesome. But the defense is like a real glaring problem if you're trying to take the team from where they are now to somewhere more serious. It's not to say you can't scheme around it or throw in different lineups or maybe bring Ochai in as a bit of more defensive insulation and all of that. Like there are ways to work around it that aren't get rid of RJ at the first chance. But it's certainly like if we're learning things about this team this year, it's been a lot of stuff we haven't been able to learn, but I do think we've learned the defense with RJ Barrett is going to be the limiting factor on his ability to contribute to a good team. And it's going to be a matter of scheming around it or, looking at different solutions. Yeah, my for this game is it's pretty clear now that Chris Boucher is the best trade asset the Raptors had going into the deadline, right? Like I kind of posited this last week, and it was sort of a theory that was being tested and sort of in the infant stages, and now it just seems clear. Again, I'm not someone who believes in the concept of showcasing or building one's value before the deadline, because I think that suggests that other teams don't have advanced scouts and pro scouts watching other teams all the time and have all this information that like they obviously do. But yeah, it's like, I don't know. What are they going to get for Chris Boucher? Is some team out there going to like pony up a couple of seconds or something like that? A team that I thought of and sort of kicked around last night in the Locked On Raptors Discord, the Rockets. Is there something with like Jock Landale in a couple seconds? They have a bunch of seconds to burn. Is Chris Boucher like a maniac type player who can fit into the maniac style that the Rockets play? I don't know. It's tough to find any trade because the CBA sucks, and it's just like really difficult for any team to make any trade if you're good and expensive. But I don't know. Where are you feeling with this whole Chris Boucher trade thing?
So I think Chris Boucher and the Raptors have put themselves in a good spot where, maybe even earlier, if there was any sort of chatter around Jakob Poeltl, it was because of his play. You could put yourself in a position where you're saying, hey, unless we receive X, Y, and Z, there's no conversation happening. And so I think in a similar vein with Chris Boucher, it's like you've been able to maybe set the market a little bit and be like, hey, like this is a guy who can come in for a competitive team and provide valuable minutes off the bench and like come in and have a stretch like he did in this fourth quarter. Like who wouldn't want that, right?
Yeah.
And that type of energy, he's a veteran, seems like a good leader in his own way. And so I think it's like, hey, we know the value here. So if you want him, come get him. And if not, we're just happy to keep him. So I think that's kind of the position that the Raptors and Boucher have put themselves in. And I think that's a good place to be.
We'll see. I'm fascinated to see what this heater does to his value. And if there's not a lot of guys out there is the thing. Like it's a pretty barren trade market. There's no, like the only reporting we're getting from Shams right now is about LiAngelo Ball getting record deals. Like there's not a whole lot of scuttlebutt around the trade market. Either way, we're going to leave it there. We've run long. Big V, anything you want to promote for the good people out there?
Usual stuff, man. Just Sportsnet, sportscasting, this Substack, Raptors in 7. You can check it all out, and you can follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Vivek Jacob.
Hell yeah, buddy. You can find me at Woodley Sean. Follow, subscribe, rate, review, tell a friend. You can also go and check out the newsletter. You can go to the QR code on the screen. You go to the link in the description of the podcast. You'll also find the Discord link in the description of the podcast if you want to join us over there, which is a very fun time. And in the meantime, we'll be back again tomorrow. We'll talk about something, TBD. I don't know. Maybe we'll talk more about Chris Boucher or Jamal Shead or whatever the hell else we feel like. Thank you so much for hanging out. We'll talk to you on Wednesday, another episode of Locked On Raptors. Bye-bye. Damn it. A little too heavy. Gave it too much juice.